How are you doing?
Good, Baruch Hashem.
Good. Just trying to get in here. Okay.
You guys are free. We are already recording. No worries. It's the first question I always asked. Are we recording? So I'm just going to be into the point.
Good. Okay. See me okay? It's nice to see everybody the other day in Dallas.
Robert, he was talking about the Southwest Regional. If you didn't know.
I was watching from Facebook. Don't worry.
Good.
Okay, good.
Okay. Okay. So today, Mr. Shem, we're going to finish off the sugya as far as the Gemara is concerned, and then we'll see where we're going to go from there as far as the halacha.
Yoshi, did you want to ask your question before we started to the Rav?
I could, but it could be that the Shuir will already answer the question, so I'm happy to get it afterwards.
Okay.
Okay, so starting with the Gemara Lama Chesed and Beis, Dag Maliach. So it seems like a sort of an innocuous Gemara, but we'll see it's quite involved here. So Dag Maliach, if you have salted fish, nothing was cooked over here. It was only prepared through malicha, through salting. Chizki Shari, Rabbi Yochanan Asar. Machokas Chizki and Rabbi Yochanan. Now, what's the case over here? That's the quick question over here. What's the case? So Rashi learns that Dag Maliach, he says Shamalcho Avukachavim Malichaso Hu Nechal Bula Bishul. So it's going to be it was nimlach by a goy, and it's Nechal Al Yedei the Malicha without any bishul at all. Chizki Shari the Lavu Bishul. Chizki said it's okay because it's not bishul. There was no bishul over here. It's only salted. Yochanan Asar Dezeu Bishulai. It doesn't matter if it wasn't actually any fire or anything like that, but Lamai said that is its bishul, so therefore it's asar. So according to Rashi, basically it's a machlokes whether or not you need actual bishul to be asar, whether you need bishul aide eish through fire to be asar or not, and that's a very sadistic machlokes between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan. So that's Shitas Rashi. And the Ramban, as well as the Rashba, the Ritva, most Rishonim, well, before we get to them, we'll just see that the Rambam learns like Rashi. The Rambam learns Pshat in the Gemara like Rashi. You see it in Perek Yud Zayin, Halacha Yud Zayin, and Machnas Asuros. Rambam says, Dag Shamalchu Goy, the Peres Sheishnu, so whether or not you salted a fish or you smoked some peros until now they're roy l'achila, they weren't before, now they are. Maliach enu karaseach b'gzerazu v'amu'ushan enu kamuvushal. So the chiddush of this Gemara, says the Rambam, is that maliach is not karaseach b'gzerazu, got this gzera, and mu'ushan, smoking, is enu kamuvushal. The Rambam puts together smoking together with like smoked fish or smoked vegetables, together with salted. That's what Rambam says. And Rambam adds in the words "begzera zu" and this gzera. Because Rambam is referring to the fact that we have a klal in Yordea in many places that maliach karaseach, salting is considered like boiling. It's considered like hot. Now, in other words, if you would have a piece of salted treif meat that's touching a piece of kosher meat, so then we have halachas that the heat of the salting, maliach karaseach, will cause a transfer of the iser from the chazer, or whatever it is, into the kosher meat. So maliach karaseach, it's considered like boiling. So now the question is, once Rish Lakish says that, or Shmuel says this lashon maliach karaseach, the words karaseach, like it's boiled. So then, do we extend that to Bishul Akum? There's a question. We definitely do not say it to Gabi Basar B'Cholov, because Basar B'Cholov, even though it will answer it, it will transfer the Basar to the Cholov or vice versa. So you'll have a combination of basar and challah, but it will not be considered basar challah deraisa, because it's not. There you need derech bishul b'kai. You need something which is derech bishul idea ish, and that would not constitute that by malicha. But the other yisurim, and it certainly transfers the isur. So since it's used the word karosayach, so according to Rashi and the Rambam, that leaves makom to have a machlokes between Chizkiah and Rabbi Yochanan, whether once we say the words karosayach, like over here, anything that's muvashal, idea resicha is usher. So it's rasayach according to Rabbi Yochanan. Chizkiah says no. According to Rashi, it's not really bishul. It's not actual bishul, and we'll have to see where does that really come from. The pashtus, it comes from the fact that we had a limud before. This is actually one of the rise of the Rishonim against Rashi, but we had a limud previously in the beginning of the sugya when the Gemara asked Minahan Emili by shlakos, by cooked foods with bishalakum and lamed zayin and beis in the bottom. When the Gemara said Minahan Emili, and it brought a pasuk by Ochel b'kesef tashreini v'achalti and mayim b'kesef titanli v'shasisi. It has to be like mayim. And we had a whole shtakotari. What is mayim telling us? And at the end of the Gemara, it said that elakamayim ma mayim shalon ishtanu mibrasan idea or av ochel shalon ishtanu mibrasan idea or. What kind of food is mutter by a goy if it was never changed through fire? We see that it has to be changed through fire in order to be usher. In order to be considered shlakos, which the word shlakos means cooked food. So, in the Mishnah, so the Gemara is saying that it has to be nishtana idea or through fire. So now we spoke this out in Machlokes, that once the Gemara fell off of this, because does it say anything about fire in the pasuk? Elamid rabbanan across smachta b'alma. So we fell off this pasuk and we said it's only in a smachta. So the question is, do we fall off of all that we learned from that pasuk when we turn it into an asmachta, or we say no? At least midrabanan on level of midrabanan, we remain with that asmachta, and it's only going to be usher when it's through or. And that's according to Rashi, that would seem to be the machlokas of Yochanan and Chizkiah. Yochanan holds that that we fell off of the pasuk completely, and therefore over here, even though there's no fire at all, since there's an element of maliach kamuvushal karasayach, it's like boiled, it's like hot, so therefore it's usher. And Chizkiah says no, that the fact that it's not actual bishul through fire, because we need the asmach that tells us midrabanan. Also, similar to the way we learned the deraisa, we have to also learn the drabanan, and it's only idei or only it's going to be through fire is going to be an isser. That's the way Rashi learns the machlokes.
Just ask a question, Rabbi. I'm not sure Rabbi Free can see you.
Rabbi Free, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The Rama makes a big jump between Malicha and Me'ushan, no?
Yeah, we'll get to Me'ushan, because that we'll see. There's a different makar for Me'ushan than this Gemara.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's your Shalmi. We'll get there. Okay. So that's the way the Rashi and the Rambam learn this Gemara. Clearly, it's a machlokas whether or not Malicha is considered like Roseach or not. The Ramban has a big problem with this. The Ramban says, how could there be anybody that would hold that you don't need bishul through fire for this gzera? And the Ramban and the Ritva, the Ran, the Rashba all go with the same halach to Keneged Rashi, and they can't accept that there is even a shita out there that would hold that maliach is considered like cooking. It can't be, because we have that the pasuk was that we just spoke about, and that they take on as never pasha, that we did not fall off of the pasuk completely. We only changed the only thing we changed in that pasuk was whether it's drabanan or deraisa. But even on the element of drabanan, it's still going to has to be dumya to that pasuk, like we said. That has to be all the yukim that we made there. One of them, namely idea or, has to be through fire. And there's nobody that would disagree with that. And also the fact that shlakos, the Rashba and Torah Sabayis brings a raya from the word shlakos in the Mishnah, that the sum total of all which is aser for bishul akum is called shlakos. And shlakos by definition is something which is cooked, but it's boiled on a pot on the fire. That is the meaning of the word shlakos. So just from that one word alone, shlakos, the Rashba holds it's a raya Keneged Rashi that it can't be that there's even a machlokas about that. Of course, that of course, that's what Chizkiah holds, but it can't be that Rabbi Yochanan. They can't even entertain the tzad. They can't even have it. Rabbi Yochanan would even have a tzad that way. For sure, nobody holds that melicha is considered cooking, and we don't say meliach reseach for these halachas. And another swore the Ramban says is that there's no chasnus, there's no chashivas and chasnus that could come through serving a salted food that was never cooked. They don't have the chashivas of the bimazin somebody to bring, to bring to chavivus and to whatever, to serve them a food that was salted and not cooked. So all these things are pashut to the Rishonim, not like the Rambam and Rashi. So therefore, they learned the pshat is different. They learned the pshat in the Gemara is that a totally different machlokas, totally different shaila. That if you took, we already had a Gemara before about dag meliach. The Gemara and Amar Aleph talked about dagim tanim meluchin. Rav, the Gemara and Chasmarav was a statement in the name of Rav that it was Amar Avasi Amar Rav dagim tanim meluchin ein behem mishum bishul aviv kachavim. So Tosfos over there already, Tosfos and Amar Aleph already asked the kasha from our Gemara that there the Gemara takes on as a double pashat that there is no problem by melicha, and over here in our Gemara it seems to be a machlokas. So how do we not bring that machlokas previously when we said the statement of Rav? So Tosfos wants to say there's a chilek that Rav is talking about, like he says, dagim tanim, small dagim, and those are nechal the gamrei aidei melicha, like I don't know, I guess like anchovies, whatever, or how we eat herring today. But the Gemara on Beis is talking about dagim gdolin, about big fish, which are only nechal more aidei atchak, and they could be nechal, but they're nechal more aidei atchak. It's not so, they're not totally edible. So that's the machlokas, and that's why Tosfos touches up the machlokas. But the Rishonim, partially because of that question, I'm going to say that the machlokas is a different machlokas. Is if you prepare these fish, which are they're masking the Tosfos that we're talking about dagim dolim over here, you prepare them with salt, and now they're nechal aidei atchak, and then they were cooked afterwards. They were cooked afterwards. So now, is that considered nechal kashu chai or not? That's the machlokas. A totally different machlokas. According to Rashi, the machlokas is whether salting is called cooking. The guy with this gzera. The Rishonim say it can't be. Nobody would hold that. There's nobody could hold that. Although the machlokas is if you prepared it through salting in a way that it was nechal aidei atchak, and then you cooked it, the goy cooked it after that, is that considered cooking something which was nechal kashu chai or not? And which really comes down to the question of something which is nechal kashu chai aidei atchak, or something is just, as some call, it's just passively edible. It's not really edible, but it's passively edible. One Rav coins that term to explain this musag, this idea. That would be the machlokas, if it is or it's not. Which it's interesting that according to that pshat, then it fits a little bit better into the. It seems to fit better into one hemshech, because we have two statements in the Gemara. We have dag meliach, and then we have beitzet sluya, which the roasted egg seems to be the same question also. That an egg when it's raw, is that you could eat a raw egg. Some people do. They eat it for refuah, whatever. Sometimes singers will drink an egg, to help their throat. A raw egg, or sometimes it can be blended up into certain kinds of drinks. But it's very uncommon to eat a raw egg. So that's the question over there. That's the similar machlokas there, whether or not that was considered, since it could be nechal aidei atchak gadol, is it considered already nechal kashu chai or not? So according to the Rishonim, it's really one sugya. According to Rashi, it's a little bit dochak. Rashi and the Rambam, there's two separate sugyas going on over here. There's two separate shilas, and we have this machlokas Rabbi Yochanan and Chizkiah are thrown into both machlokas. It seems like it's one hemshech over here, just two applications of one shaila, dag meliach and beitzet sluya. Whereas according to Rashi, in the Rambam, it's two totally separate sugyas. The sugya of Dag Maliach is a question of is Malicha called Maliach Karaseach make an Isser a Bishul Akum or not? And then the question of the Beitza is whether something's Nechal Ideat Chak is considered Nechal Kashu Chai or not. That's according to Rashi. It's two totally unrelated sugyas happen to be put together, maybe because they have the same names involved. But according to the other Rishonim, the Ramban and the other Rishonim, it's really all one shaila. It's just two different levels of the same shaila of big fish that are salted, that are not so edible, but there are edible idea chak, and then a raw egg that nothing was done to it at all, but it was edible idea chak gadol. Is that considered something that's edible raw or not? So it's really part of the same sugya according to the Rishonim. According to Rashi, it's two separate sugyas.
Rabbi, Beita Tluya is raw. Isn't salui a form of?
No, so then it's Tluya now. The question is, if the goy cooked it, but was it considered nechal kashu chai before that?
Okay. So if it was nechal kashu chai before, then
so it was. If you could eat a raw egg, but it's very idea atzak. So is that called nechal kashu chai or not?
Right, but Rebbe said that Rashi holds that the whole question is whether or not it was nechal kashu chai. When Rashi talks it out, it seems that he says lo naga. Right. It sounds like Rashi's.
Yeah. Rashi puts that into. Yeah, you're right. Rashi puts that into that itself also, not like the other Rishonim. Rashi seems to turn that also into a new shaila. So
whether they never
sways away from the whole shaila of nechal chak over here for this whole sugya. There's no raya at all from this entire sugya about anything idea chak.
Right.
You're correct. It's a whole new shaila of if it's something's balua in a shell, according to Rashi, if the goy cooked it, but you never actually came in contact with the actual ochel, is that considered bishul akum or not? That's a whole completely. Rashi makes it into one other shaila. You're correct.
Wouldn't a raw egg never be ola shulchan malachim?
Well, it doesn't have to be ola when it's raw. The question has to be ola when it's cooked.
But the shaila is on the raw egg, no?
Well, shaila there's two shailas. The cooking is all shulchan malachim is a question of when it is cooked. Is that cooked? Is that a thing that which will be put on shulchan malachim or not? But when it's raw, it doesn't have to be eaten by a melech to be. As long as raw people eat it when it's raw, it doesn't matter if melech does or not. If it's just normally eaten. And that's the shaila according to the Rishonim. If it's nechal idea chak, let's say something it's like at the level of machar ben drasoi, whatever. Like it's only idea chak. Is that considered a raw edible food or not? But for that you don't need to be worried for shulchan malachim. For the raw part of it, just for the cooked part, you have to then see whether that's where the shulchan malachim or not. So we have this major machlokas going on over here. The Tur and the Shulchan Aruch go with the Rishonim, not like Rashi. The Tur, I don't know if I have the Tur here or not. Yeah, I do. The Tur just introduces the whole shiloh by saying in Sifyu Gimel, it says, "V'lo asru ela b'bishul sh'ayidei ha'esh, al shalai yidei ha'esh." There's no shaila, there's no question of bishul akum unless it's idea eish. So that just wipes away the whole question of. I mean that's what we alluded to from the remez of the smachta, the need idea or and from lashon shlakos and everything, which is all through fire. But then they summarize the whole din of bishul akum by things that are cooked by the fire. So we see that chazal were not garzer except for things idea eish. So if it goes on, therefore, basar dagim, there were kavash, either kavush or which is pickling, or milcham, or salted, or etc. Are all okay. And the Torah ends off again, like the Rambam did in Osim Dvarim Haroyim Lachil Ede Ishun. To smoke is also okay. That's the Torah and the Rambam both say. Now the question was raised about smoking, which. that would seem to be an issue if if there's, they say if there's smoke, there's fire, right? So if there's if you're smoking something, that shows that there is fire involved in somewhere along the line. There's fire involved. Lamaisa, of course, smoke was created through fire, but there are two types of smoking. This book we speak about. There's what's called cold smoking and hot smoking. So the cold smoking is true to there was the fire created smoke, but now there's just a cool area of smoke, which is kept about 80 degrees or so, and they smoke meat or they smoke fish, and that cold smoke. And that L'Kuli Alma, there's no shiloh of that because it's just the effect of the chemicals, whatever that there is in the smoke, that's what affects the food and cooks it. So that's for sure not bishul akum. The question will become when it's hot smoke, when you put it into a hot area that's sort of like it's contained and has heat and smoke together that are preparing this food. So that is a bigger shiloh in poskim, but many poskim, including Rabban Kotler and Rabbi Vad Yosef, hold that that's okay. For various reasons. This just to know, this is not just a shiloh poskim today. This goes back to Yerushalmi. There's Yerushalmi and Nedarim, and there's Yerushalmi and Shabbos. There's a question of smoking on Shabbos, smoking food on Shabbos, not smoking on Shabbos. And if that's considered bishul for Shabbos, it's a shiloh in the Yerushalmi, and that we're machmir. That we say that ishun is usher. You're not allowed to prepare food by cooking, by smoking on Shabbos. That's a shiloh in a deraisa where that's considered bishul, or not when it's hot smoke. When it's but over here for bishul akum, since it's a shiloh, it's a shiloh in the Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi is not pushed at the shiloh. So the way the Chazon Ish learns the Rambam is that it's we're not machriya that smoking is not a process, but we're machmer for Shabbos, which is deraisa. We're mikol for this, which is only derabanan. And there's a further svara that the Rishonim say that just like maliach is not something which creates bishul akum, because it doesn't create a chavivas or chasnas and shivas. Huadin, similarly, smoking is in the same kind of getter. That's a little harder to hear because there are a lot of smoke things, smoked cheese, smoke things that are very chashuv today. So it's hard to hear why that would not be a kir of das or anything. So you have to go back to the general klal. The Shevet Levi might have been Rav. It was Rav Pesach Eliyahu Falk from England. So he has a svara to say that when you smoke with hot smoke, so there's really two forces that are preparing this food. There's the heat of the fire, and you have also the power and the chemicals and the smoke that are preparing it. And we find often in Yoredea a klal of zeh gorim, and two separate things cause it, and each one wouldn't do it on its own. So then we say that it's still mutter. So over here, the heat alone did not create the food did not prepare the food the way they wanted it. Just with heat would not have a smoked fish or smoke whatever you're making. So you need also the second gorim, the second causative thing, which is the smoke. And the smoke itself on its own right, without the heat, does not create bishul akum because it's not cooking. It's smoking. It's something else. So therefore, these poskim are a mekel, and that's pretty much what's done with the kashrus agencies, that they rely on this. That smoking is, even hot smoke is from those part okay. There was a Maisa years back that there's a lot of the smoked salmon that's out there is hot smoked salmon, and it seems that the industry had come to the conclusion that it would be a lot more profitable for them and better for them and more efficient if they would first cook the fish. As soon as they salted it and then they cooked it, they soaked it in brine for a long period of time, for a certain period of time, and then they after they cooked it, and then they smoked it after that, because then they just added the smoking into it to add the flavor. So as soon as it was more profitable for them, so that created a big problem because they were actually cooking it first, making it roy lachila. They would leave it for a little bit in salt water, and then they would cook it, and then they would put the smoke in. So the little bit of salt water wasn't really enough to make it roy lachila. The little bit of brine, the short amount of time, and then they would cook it for a long period of time, which would really make it roy lachila completely, and then they would add the smoke flavor in. So it was already fish that was roy lachila by the cooking, and most of the fish around would all be a problem. So this Rabbi Moshe Zuyaka from the OU, it seems that he brilliantly convinced the entire industry that it would be more profitable for them and more efficient for them, and also, I guess, even better taste for them if they would leave it longer in the brine, much longer in the brine, and then that, I guess, would save them a lot of money for cooking afterwards and heat and everything like that. So much shorter cooking period, much longer salting period, and then they would add the smoking afterwards. Wow. So he brilliantly convinced the entire industry that would be more practical and profitable for them, and they went along with him. So most places then, by the time that gets out of the brine, it's more like a type of lox. It's like, and even though you couldn't eat it by itself, but you could eat it with crackers or on matzah, it would be edible that way. So that's considered roy lachila already when it's high, and therefore you basically save the whole industry.
Rabbi, today, is there, if a different door eats fish differently, would that change the status? Like with sushi today, and now that
we spoke about that. We spoke about that last time. I think it was the last year. I think it was last year we spoke about that, or one before that. That we have to finally determine that. But I started speaking to Poskim about that, which in the Gemara is we distinguish between dagim gdolim and dagim tanim.
Right.
Going through that, it was matir ayde licha was dagim tanim. Dagim gdolim. Now we have this whole machlokas and this whole shaila because it's only necha ayde atchak.
Right.
So, but the thing is that today with sushi, which as soon as it's not really a new thing, it's just a new thing for us. It's been around for a while. So I don't know what other fishes they use, but if they're for sure using fish, what's most nigga for us is probably salmon and tuna.
Right.
And both salmon and tuna, as we know, are dagim gdolim. They're not katane by any means.
I got you.
It's dagim gdolim. And even so, people eating them today raw.
Right.
So the minhag has changed today that the people eat dagim gdolim raw, not only salted, but even raw. It's considered a delicacy, it's not idea tchak at all. It's idea l'chatchila. People paying a lot of money in sushi bars to eat raw fish, and it's big, and it's dagim gdolim.
Quick question. There's if something was cooking, like let's say a salmon or a fish that was cooking to essentially eliminate the bacteria, but it wouldn't fully cook the fish. Meaning it would be cooking in, let's say, hot water that at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time, that it would eliminate all the bacteria, but the fish would still, if you put it in the fridge for 3 hours, it would still come out like sushi and still come out tasting or looking raw. Would that be bishul or?
Basically, you mean like a pasteurization process?
Correct.
Yeah. So pasteurizing is that for the most part that would not be cooking, and that would not render it usher. It would just, because it doesn't really make a change also in any shinui in it. Like there's a question by pasteurizing wine, does that make it not royal mizbeach or not? Because it's considered cooked wine. If those that are machmer to have wine that's not mavushal, or does it help for bishul? Does it help to be yain mavushal if, let's say, pasteurized wine and then a goy touches it afterwards? Is that yain mavushal or not? Is the goy make it usher? So Rishon Zalman and Rabbi Yoshev, that's all they held, that it still ushers the wine, the goyim, because it's not considered mavushal, because the pasteurization process is done in a way that, in a closed system, in order that it should not affect the taste or the shape or anything about the food. So it stays as it was. It's like a hermetic thing, and therefore it didn't change in any way, and it's still considered yain nesach, yain, stam yanim if a goy touches it.
So according to them, there wouldn't be.
So pasteurization, for the most part, we don't consider it a cooking. So if the goyish pasteurization process would not make it usher.
Okay.
There are a lot of other shalos here. We can't really go into everything, but maybe when we get to the Shulchan Aruch, we'll go through more of the Maisa. I'll throw out a few shalos to you that you should know that are going to get to the sugya that there's a question of if you cook something in a kli rishon, not on the fire. So Gabi Shabbos, that's considered bishul. But if a goy, let's say, cooks an egg, and you can easily cook an egg in a kli rishon, not on the fire, right? So is that considered bishul or not? Because it wasn't. On one hand, it's not on the fire directly now, but it is considered todos eish. Like Avi Shabbos, Yechayev is considered a chil Shabbos deraisa to put something into a kli rishon. So that the Chelkas Binyamin is machmer for, but that's considered real bishul, and therefore will be bishul akam as well. There is another suffix though. If you cook aide irui, if you pour over it, that becomes a shiloh whether that's deraisa derabanan. Irui is big shalos in Yerodea. Do we say Irui is considered kli rishon or kasheni? It's a big malchos rishonim, Ben and Tam and others, and Rashbam and Chulin and other places. So that the Chagos Binyamin remains Sarach Ian the Dina. If a goy cooks something through Irui, through pouring over it, that's considered bishul akam or not. There's a major shiloh which is more negei l'maisa, and that is extremely negei l'maisa, which is if you see in the poskim, they call it kitor, which is steam, cooking through steam. There are many processes today in factories many things today are cooked through steam. There's direct steam and there's indirect steam. There are a lot of different types of different kalim, different jackets and things that are used when they cook things through steam. So the one svara is that the steam is not considered directly cooking from the fire. It's a product of the fire, but it's not directly from the fire. Which then you have to, if that would be the case, then we have to know if that's the same as cooking in a kli rishon, because it's also not directly on the fire anymore. But that's one question, which most poskim are docha that still would be an issue. There's another svara that they did not have that type of cooking in the days of Chazal. They didn't cook through steam in the days of Chazal. They cooked by cooking, and that's a very technical thing. But the fact is that Chazal made their gzera the way they made it, only with what they made it upon, only what they had at their time. So there's a klal that if something Chazal were not actually goes around because they didn't have it, and now it comes up, even though they might have been gozer if they did have it, but if they didn't, so then there's another svara in poskim to say that we can't be mosif or we can't add new gzeras to what they said. So that's another svara. So and some poskim are docha that svara because it doesn't. If it would have said specific types of bishul in the Mishnah or in our sugya, then we'd say okay, they said it on these types and not other types. But here the Mishnah just said a klal shlakos, cooked food. So there are different ways to cook food. There are different ways to. So perhaps today, what they call it didn't say this type of cooking. It just said cooking, cook food. So whatever defines it, cooking for the generation, that could be considered included in the Gzeras Chazal. I'll just give you a sort of a distant example of that. Sort of a distant example. I was once discussing with the Rishon Zatzal the question of the rugged shover. Once I told him the rugged shover tries to bring a raya that you shouldn't need tefillas haderech in an airplane. Why? Because the Gemara in Chulin has a shaila if you find a kan sipor, you find a bird's nest that's a theoretical case. It's just you find it in suspended animation in midair. So it's just hanging in the air. So would there be a mitzvah shuluch haken of taking the mother and sending it off, take the eggs, mitzvah shuluch haken or not? So the Gemara says ki yimaseh kan sipor b'derech. You find a kan sipor on the derech, but avir lav derechu. The air is not a derech. That's the Gemara Kulin. So based on that, the rugged shover said that since the Gemara says avir lav derech, and we call this tefillas haderech, so it's not a derech. So you don't make tefillas haderech on the airplane. So I told this to Shlomo Zalman, and he got very upset about this and said that you don't say such things. And in those days, Aver wasn't a derech, but today the Aver is as much of a derech, or more so, just as much of a derech as the land. And of course, Chazal didn't mean the word derech. It's not exeres akasav of the word derech. It's whatever is a derech in that generation. That's a derech that you need to also derech for. So I'm just as a sabras ozen. It could be that Chazal just said shlakos, cook things, And this is what some poskim would say, that you can't say that they didn't have steam in those days. If it is cooking through fire by way of water then, or by way of steam, that's also is a way of cooking.
So
as long as at least you're directly cooking from the steam.
Just quick question. I'm not sure exactly what this would be considered if this is a cooking that has been done for years and years already. But has everybody ever heard of sous vide cooking?
Yeah, sous vide would be a question. The thing is, sous vide probably doesn't get hot enough to be considered boiling. The whole question here,
it doesn't boil.
It doesn't boil. So I know. So therefore, that probably would not be like everyone says that there's not even a question about cold smoke, for example, because it doesn't get to the cooking temperature. The whole question begins if you have cooking temperature, but not a way that they used to cook. That's steam is not only is that cooking temperature is way above cooking temperature. Like water gets to 212, it's gone. It turns into steam, and in the steam itself, you can get up to depending on how you pressurize it, you can get it up to 500 degrees also. Keep on going. So is cooking by steam cooking or not? And so some poskim, I'm not really saying up sock now, I'm just throwing this out there that some poskim say that want to bring a raya from Ishun, that hot smoke also is not considered cooking, even though it cooks, even though now it is a way of cooking. And we can docha that to say that's not a raya, because there, like we said before, Falk said that there it's also as far as there was a gorim. It's not just the heat of the steam of the smoke; it's the chemicals in the smoke and everything, which is a whole separate thing. And on that there is no bishul akum, and zev is a gorim. So maybe it's not such a raya from smoking. But nevertheless, Ron Cutler and Rabbi Yosef are makel about on with steam. But on the other side of the equation, Rav Chaim Ozer and Rav Yoshiv are machmer with steam. So and there are different anhagas and different mostos of kashrus legabi this. It's a very big question in today's poskim and in today's kashrus agencies. What the halacha of steam is. There's just to not to leave it out. There's direct steam and there's indirect steam. Like there are different types of you're sworn with me right now, but let's say, for example, like pasteurizing is done through indirect steam. They have heat up cans in order to kill the bacteria in the cans. They cook the corn and stuff in cans. Once the cans are already sealed, that's when it goes through it goes into a steamer in order to heat it up temporarily to kill the bacteria and get it somewhat cooked and kill the bacteria off. But it does get cooked as well. So that's also indirect steam. And it seems that most kashrus agencies are being makel with these types of things. But it's a serious question, but it comes out of this sugya really. It's important to know it's another nafkamina in the sugya. Another question in the sugya is microwave. Cook through microwave. A goy cooks something through the microwave, is that considered cooking or not? We have a very major shayla between Rosh Zalman and Rav Moshe, whether we spoke about this back in Shin Yud Ches in the last cycle, whether microwave cooking in the microwave is considered bishul deraisa on Shabbos or not, and also legabe basar v'cholav. Rosh Zalman maintains that it is, and it's both. It's a major machlokas in the poskim about that. The question is, would microwave cooking be considered a problem with bishul akum or not? Because on one hand, you don't have actual fire, which if we say you need, like the lesson in the Torah, you need bishul ba'esh, you need fire. So steam at least had fire. So then you had a question: it's indirect fire through the steam? But here you have no fire at all. On the other hand, it is a derech bishul today. It's a very normal derech bishul. So would it go into the gzera? So true, on one hand, Chazal didn't have it. On the other hand, they said shlakos, anything which is cooked food, and using that svara, you certainly have very well cooked food through microwaves. Right? People cooking in microwaves to save time, and the food is considered well cooked. So it's a major question. It seems that most kashrus agencies, even those that are makel with smoking and with steam, they're machmer with microwaves. They won't allow their restaurants if a goy pops the potato to have a baked potato in the microwave, they won't allow that in the restaurants. So they're all machmir. And the question is, are they machmir because they hold it's really bishul, or machmir because it's on haga that people don't differentiate today between this type of oven or that type of oven. It's going to microwave a regular oven. If we allow them to cook this, they'll also turn around and cook the other thing in their own oven, that would turn the fire down themselves as well. So it might be an haga question, whether even if not actually machriya, the actual lumdisha question over here, one way or the other, but there still might be a reason to be knowing this way, because otherwise people today will mix it up. But it's certainly an important question that needs to be resolved. Not resolve everything. I'm just we're learning the sugya and just bringing out how you see the sugya really starts talking about one thing, about salted fish. We got from salted fish to microwaves and smoking and steam cooking and pasteurization and everything else. It's all in the via from this Gemara. Okay. Now the next Gemara, which we already mentioned, we'll just to finish it off, that talks about the beitza tzluya. You have the roasted beitza. Here again, you have machokas chizki and bar kapora. Now bar kapora is added on the chizkiya side. The matir and Rabbi Yochanan says it's usher, just like the case before. So going with the mahalach of the Rishonim, this is a further question of necha ideat chak, and so no, the Ritva asks the question that l'chora tan echad l'shneim. The Rif brought in the name of a gaon. He didn't say which gaon. He says the name of a gaon that we're only mach. Even though Abaye said that halacha Rabbi Yochanan, we'll only accept that legabe beitza, that it's usher, but not legabe the fish, not legabe the dag maliach. So the Ritva already asked the question that they're both the tam echad l'shneim, they're both the same svara. According to the way the Rishonim were learning, the Ramban and the Ran and the Rishonim were all learning. So there's one tam for both. They're all a question of necha ideat chak. If it's only we call it passively edible. So for machmir like Rabbi Yochanan for the beitza, why are we mekel legabe the dog? So the Ritva says that he says the following. He answers that the fish sof kol sof, there was a haschala aydei heter. It began to be prepared through malicha. So there was a haschala beheter, and now you finished it off through the cooking. Because according to the Rishonim, the case over here was you cooked it afterwards. So that since the haschal you began beheter, even if that beginning was through a goy, but it was a ma'isa that's a ma'isa heter, even for a goy to do malicha, and then it finished it through Yisrael, then it's similar to Yisrael cooking something machal ben dersoy and then a goy finishing it off. So we say the haschala was mutter, also the sof is mutter. But the problem is that the Rif previously in the previous sugya asked the Ritva, the Rif himself brought the heter of Rav Asi only by dagim ktanim. Mashma dagim gedolim or usher, even if you cook it afterwards, even if you started off salting it. So therefore, so if you say that's a shot over here, then that would be a steer in the Rif. Before the Rif said, if you started off and you salted big fish and then you cook them, it's usher. And now we say it's mutter, because he's passing like the goan that we're being mekel legabe dai maliach. So therefore the Rif says you have to say that the Rif learned like Rashi and the Rambam. The dag maliach was not a question of cooking it afterwards. It was a question of if it was only salted. If we only salted it, is that considered maliach like cooking or not? And he says even though he doesn't accept that pshat, he thinks it's wrong, but that's where the Rif must have learned. So that's the mahalach and the Rif. The halacha l'maisa, the Shulchan Aruch says beitza Avapisha roya lagoma chaya beitza, even though it's fit to swallow it raw. In bishla overcoming asur. If it's cooked by a goy, then it's asur. So the Taz brings down that the tam is achil aydiat chak is not considered achila, and therefore it's not considered nechal kashu chai. It's not considered fit to eat when it's raw. So after the Taz that we had previously in Sifyat Beis by Dagim Tanim, over there it said at the end of the halacha, but Dagim Meluchim Gedolim are not nechal aydiat chak, and therefore if a goy cooks them afterwards, it's asur. V'yesh matirim. Some say it's mutar. So we had over there two shitas. We had 2 days over there. Why the Shulchan Aruch over here is so that it's asur by a beitza? It doesn't bring two opinions. And over there it said there are 2 shitas whether or not nechal aydiat chak is considered a chila or not. So why over there by Dagim Udolim did he bring a second shita and by over here not? So Taz answers is that a beitza is considered even more dechak than Dagim Udolim. With thumalicha. That's some people do eat salted fish when they're big, but nobody normally eats. No normal person eats raw eggs. Therefore, even though you could eat it, some individuals might do it. It's not considered a chila. It's much more atak, and therefore, the goy cooking it is considered bishul akum. That's the achra of the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so this just leaves us with a little bit of a nebulous kind of a maskana that the whole concept of nechal aydiat chak and nechal kashu chai becomes a very subjective thing. Right? Some people like this, some people like that. Okay, we're sort of comparing, apples to oranges, eggs to fish. We're making these kind of comparisons, and we're saying that there's different madregas and levels of how much people eat things. So it leaves it on one hand nebulous. On the other hand, it leaves it like we spoke before. The poskim say in the beginning of the siman, which we'll get to, that all these things, these halachas are totally b'kol makom v'kol zman. So the place and the time defines what's considered. We don't have straight gedarim and chazal for this in a way that they're like ironclad and say that's just what it is l'chol hadaros. Rather, these things depend on the time and the zman and the place. So that's why getting back to the question of sushi, which I haven't finished really the Gemara yet, but there, before you see connected everything we're saying in the Gemara, we're talking about not only dagim tanim meluchim, we're talking about dagim gudolim, not only meluchim, but dagim gudolim that are nechal kashu chai. And would that change the status? The nafkamina would be obviously that if today a goy will cook a salmon with no previous process whatsoever, a goy will cook a salmon or cook a tuna, a whole tuna. Is that us or not? Is a tuna today in our places or a salmon a dog shenechal kashu chai, and therefore there's no issue bishul hakim on it. I haven't seen that. I don't think Kash Sage is going to know that way, but that's hopefully by the time we get to the Shulchan Aruch on that we'll have it. We'll try to clarify that question. But it's a very serious question. So that completes the sugya that we're learning, and we don't have enough time now. Between now, we're going to have to go on Pesach break soon. Mr. We're going to Eretz Yisrael in a few days, this coming week. So, this will be the last year from now till Pesach, and I think I'll probably be giving Mar Makomos over for the next few weeks until we resume after Pesach. I think I would like to everybody to see the Torah Sabayis of the Rashba. It would be very helpful to go through the whole. Now that we've seen the whole sugya and the Rishonim, we've spoken everything through, and it would be very helpful for everybody to see just to go through straight the whole Torah Sabayis of the Rashba, which will it'll be a chazara on the whole sugya, and all the questions of the Rishonim. It'll be a beautiful chazara, and then after Pesach, we'll start the Tur Beis Yosef. I think the Rashba should only take probably a few days to go through, so we make it for next week, and maybe we'll give a couple simanim and Hilchos Pesach to see over the break time over Hilchos Pesach, over the halachos for the Seder, and then Rabbi Yisrael Katz will let everybody know. Rabbi Yisrael Katz let everybody know exactly when we'll be resuming in Mr. Shem. So, meantime, Chag Shavuos Sameach, and if anybody's interested, I sent out on the WhatsApps and some machshavas about the Haggadah last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Shkoch, everybody.
All right. Kol tuv. Chag kasher sameach.